All right, guys, welcome to day 10 of training to qualify for Tokyo 2025. I've been seeing a lot on social media lately with diet, and for those of you who do look up diet stuff on social media, you'll know it's just like a cesspool of like absolutes, like some people saying, don't eat carbs, or eat fat only, fat and meat, or vegan, whatever. I'm not going to comment on any of that, but I do believe I have like a niche perspective from a middle distance running perspective. I believe I've had a lot of success with the current diet I have because I'm very on point and I know pretty much exactly what I'm putting into my body. But one thing that I found that's like in common with pretty much every single person's opinion, whether there's a scientist or activist or social media influencer, is processed foods aren't good for you. And I think that is not 100% true, again, from a distance running perspective. Because at the end of the day, we're glucose burning machines. It is not uncommon to eat 4,000, 4,500 calories a day and still not have enough food in your system and lose weight. In Peter Attia's book Outlive, I finished it about like a couple weeks ago, he brought up two studies. One of them, they had two groups of monkeys. This one group of monkeys had like as much food as they wanted, they could eat even if they were bored, etc., etc. The second group of monkeys had a control diet, meaning they were limited in the amount of calories they could eat per day. They were on a calorie restriction diet. And they found that the calorie restricted monkeys lived longer than the ones that were able to eat whenever they wanted. But a second study came out where, and again guys, I might be butchering this, I'm just kind of going off memory here. They had two groups of monkeys, but the food they ate was like natural food. And they didn't find nearly as big of a difference from the calorie restriction diet and then from the eat all you can diet. And it kind of suggests that like if you just have a diet of processed foods, you won't live as long, especially if you're eating as much as you want and most definitely in a calorie surplus. But again, from a distance running perspective, I feel like it's different because A, we're not monkeys. B, I don't feel like any of these studies have been done in competitive athletes, competitive distance runners, and our needs are just different than the general population. I think that especially appropriately timed processed foods might even be good for you. Like, I'm also a history buff. I also just finished Dan Carlin's Hardcore History podcast on World War I. What a great podcast, guys. It was like 6 episodes, 3 to 4 hours long each, just basically on the history of World War I from both perspectives, the Allies and the German-Austria perspective. And I was thinking of the diet stuff while listening to that podcast. Because imagine being like Germany. You're like 1915, 1916, you probably have the best army ever to exist. The issue is you are surrounded by world superpowers and other enemies. Besides Austria, pretty much the whole world is against you. On your Western front, you have France and Britain and all of their colonial powers. Guys, the Germans were fighting Algerians, Egyptians, Australians, Canadians. The Allies were sending people from all over the world, and Germany just had Germans fighting. So even though they had the best army, they were outnumbered by a lot. Now, the number one problem that the Germans had, maybe not the number one problem, but a big problem, is they were all slowly starving to death because they were surrounded. They could import no foods. They had a big blockade by the British Navy. Now, this is where I think, like, an example of how processed foods are good. Like, imagine being a German soldier in a trench. It's wet, it's cold. You've seen some of the most horrific things in human existence. And you're eating about like 1,500 to 1,600 calories a day on an already physically demanding job. Like, your morale is down, you're depressed, your best friends are no longer with you. Now, imagine your commander says, "Boys, we're going over the top in 15 minutes." Like, imagine exchanging looks with your colleagues. Imagine the resentment in your eyes, the resentment in their eyes. You're thinking like, why should we even do this? The romanticization of war is like all done. You've been there for a while. It sucks. Everything's industrialized now. the deaths are industrialized, the manufacturing, even all the people coming in. Like there's nowhere close in history has the amount of people fought in a war than World War I up until that point. Now, imagine this. Right before you go over the top, your commander puts his hand on your shoulder and says, "Hey, you boys have been fighting hard. I want you to have this." And your commander pulls out a S'mores Pop-Tart. Keep in mind, you haven't had sugar in God knows how long. The last time you had sugar, it was like a little teaspoon when you were like cycled off the front line, like a little teaspoon and a cup of tea, and they're like, "Oh, that's your sugar allotment for the month." And now you're having pure rocket fuel. 370 calories of Pop-Tarts. And all of your colleagues, all of your comrades, they all get this Pop-Tart. And you start you're so excited, like you're just like, "Oh my God," like you feel the energy. You feel, suddenly, you're not resentful anymore. You're thinking like, "Yeah, no, I think we can actually win this battle." But your commander says, wait, you like the S'mores Pop-Tart? Wait until you try the Frosted Chocolate Fudge Pop-Tart. He gives you and all of your colleagues another one. Now you've had 740 calories of pure sugar. You're like shaking now, putting on your bayonet. You have never been this excited, and suddenly sacrificing yourself for the motherland sounds so much better than it did 5 minutes ago. And I honestly think during crucial points of the First World War, if the German military, again at crucial points, had access just to Pop-Tarts, their whole army had access to Pop-Tarts, I think the war could have been totally different. I'm not even kidding. Imagine the result of a whole war being decided on access to Pop-Tarts just because of the amount of energy that would give. Anyways, that's an example of how processed foods can help. So not everything is black and white, but generally speaking, yeah, eating Pop-Tarts and eating pizza, it's not good for you. But under certain circumstances, like if I can't eat too much before a race, I do enjoy something very calorie dense and a lot of sugar. I just don't frequent in it too often. Okay guys, we are right at the track. For today's workout, we are doing 150, 250, 150. The reason why we're having a light workout today is because we're racing on Friday. So we are racing in 48 hours. The 150, 250, 150 is supposed to be right around that first lap, 800 meter pace. We're going to be starting from a standing start. Coach's orders were to run the corners more. So that just means for every rep that I run more corner than I do straightaways, because that's what I think a lot of runners neglect too, is how to run a corner. I don't think many runners actually train for that. So for this workout, because we're doing like such few reps, I'll be able to focus on that a lot so we can become just more efficient and just primed for Friday. I look like such an idiot trying to take a thumbnail. This is the cost of making a YouTube channel and a social media. Your integrity. Like, imagine the year is 1916. You're a French soldier. You're at the Battle of Verdun. You're sitting in a shell hole. Your uniform is soaked to your body. You're caked in your buddy's gore. In the puddle, you're sitting in misery. A family-sized bag of ketchup chips just floats on up to you. You have no idea what it is, but as soon as you open it, that like smell you get, and right away you know it's edible, and you start feasting. That is the most flavor you've had in your life. That's the most flavor anyone's ever invented up until that point. Nobody's had the power of modern processed foods, like how like strong the taste is. Like you're all muddy, your fingers are all like just messy, and you're just licking your fingers for the ketchup dust just to get the last little bits of that flavor. Enough of those ketchup chip bags would have turned morale and given enough energy where the French would have made it to German soil and the war would have been decisive, meaning we wouldn't have had a Treaty of Versailles, meaning we wouldn't have had World War II. It just means, guys, like we wouldn't have been born, or at least the version of us wouldn't be born. Like the world would end up in a totally different place. And that's the power of processed foods, given the right circumstance and the right timing. All right, guys, we have an in the car post-workout review. Guys, it was a windy day today. Very windy. When it was in my face, it felt like I was crawling, and when it was at my back, it felt like I was flying. That's the nature of windy days. Overall, I felt a tad fatigued today, though I felt actually half decent. But we just got in a very hard training block. This is totally expected. I'm gonna have a good rest tonight. I'm gonna go to Sarasota tomorrow, and then racing on Tampa on Friday night, guys. So lots of time to recover. So thank you for joining me on day 10. Guys, I'll see you on Friday.